I mean, you talked about the whole Malcolm and Eddie thing. Like, what do you think was some of the most racist things that you've dealt with being in Hollywood?
Hollywood, man.
Hollywood in general?
Yes.
Me and Eddie really did not get along.
In real life?
In real life.
I did not know this.
Yeah. Like we didn't get, but every single week before taping, we'd come together, we'd put our hands together, we'd bow, and we'd pray before we go out.
Just wanted to remind you, as I remind myself, that no matter what's going on, there's always a reason.
Baby, the streets are on fire. Malcolm-Jamal Warner's sudden passing sent shockwaves, but Hollywood? Cold as a Botox smirk. Fans are outraged. And Eddie Murphy? Oh, he's not just mad. Word is Eddie Murphy didn't hold back. He straight up dragged the industry for turning their backs on Malcolm-Jamal Warner. No tribute, no headlines. Just radio silence for a man who helped define Black TV culture? Eddie's calling it what it is, calculated disrespect. And according to him, that silence wasn't accidental, it was deliberate.
I'm tired of running for shade. And aren't you tired of being hustled and played? And aren't we all tired of crying about how hard it is to be Black in America, even if it looks like we've got it made?
Now here's the million-dollar question. Did Hollywood purposely sweep Malcolm-Jamal Warner's death under the rug? Or is this just their usual way of ghosting Black legends once they're gone? Let's be real. Eddie Griffin didn't just lose a friend. He lost a comrade in the struggle. And his reaction? That wasn't just grief. That was righteous fury. Because what we saw wasn't just a death. It was an erasure happening in real time. Eddie and Malcolm go way back. Two Black men navigating the same cutthroat town, never afraid to speak truth in a room full of whispers. While others played it safe, they called out the racism loud and clear, and now, one of them is gone, and the silence is deafening. Malcolm-Jamal Warner had been sounding the alarm on media manipulation for years, and baby, that wisdom came from decades of behind-the-scenes battles in the belly of the beast. One of his biggest wake-up calls? Right after the glow of The Cosby Show faded and he stepped into Malcolm and Eddie in the mid-90s. That's when it hit him hard. In Hollywood, showing Black folks in a positive light wasn't just rare. It was treated like some kind of anomaly, like it didn't belong. And that right there, that told him everything he needed to know.
Because I had gone from, just everything that Cosby had represented, and I had come from a show that made history, that showed that Black people could be funny without being stereotypical. Because I'm saying, look, we can actually be funny without doing the stereotypical stuff. And no one was really interested in that route. They're like, we didn't bring you over here for that. This is what we do.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner was in for a rude awakening, honey. He thought The Cosby Show had set a new bar, showing Black families with dignity and depth. But nope. Turns out, that was a one-time fluke, not the new standard. When he joined UPN's Malcolm and Eddie, he expected more of that same love. Instead, he hit a wall of writers, producers, and execs still clinging to tired old stereotypes like their lives depended on it. And that's when reality slapped him. Bill Cosby didn't just create a show, he had control. Real, rare, untouchable control. The kind of creative power Black actors almost never get, no matter how big their name is. This was Malcolm's wake-up call, and baby, it was brutal. For 8 years, he watched Bill Cosby shut down stereotype-heavy scripts and thought, oh, this must be how things are done. But when he hit UPN, reality hit hard. That kind of creative control? Practically unheard of. Cosby had rare, almost mythical leverage, and that's the only reason The Cosby Show could show Black family life with such grace and dignity. Without that power, most Black actors didn't get a voice. They were expected to smile, nod, and perform whatever stereotype the network handed them, no matter how damaging it was to their image or their entire community.
We were at odds. What we both understood is we get to 100 episodes, we're going to have a sweet syndication deal. Ultimately, they cut us at 88. Because they were tired. They were tired of me fighting with the writers, and then they were tired of Eddie's shenanigans.
Malcolm and Eddie got the axe at 88 episodes, just 12 shy of the golden number for syndication. You know, the one that guarantees long-term checks and cozy retirement plans. But don't be fooled, darling. It wasn't bad ratings that killed it. The real reason? The network had had enough of Malcolm-Jamal Warner and Eddie Griffin pushing back on lazy, stereotypical scripts and daring to ask for better representation. Malcolm was finally seeing Hollywood's dirty little secret. If you challenge the narrative, you pay for it. The message was loud and ruthless. Speak up and kiss your financial freedom goodbye.
Television, first of all, has changed the financial face of television. Because for the money you'd spend on a scripted show, and it's less expensive, it's less hassle. You don't have to deal with unions, you don't have to deal with writers. So that has really hurt. That's hurt the integrity of the business.
By 2016, Malcolm-Jamal Warner had seen enough, and he was done pretending. Reality TV had wrecked television, especially when it came to Black representation. Networks were raking in cash by churning out low-budget, drama-filled messes that painted Black folks in the worst possible light. Meanwhile, scripted shows that portrayed Black families as real, nuanced human? Ignored. For Malcolm, this wasn't just about creative integrity, it was about cold, hard cash. The industry rewarded harmful stereotypes because they were cheap, chaotic, and addictive, even if they destroyed communities in the process. And while Malcolm spoke carefully, choosing his words like a diplomat, Eddie Griffin didn't come to play. He'd been yelling from the rooftops for years. Hollywood doesn't just ignore strong Black men, it targets them. Especially the ones who won't play by the rules. Eddie saw the pattern and baby, he was never scared to name it. Let's get one thing straight. Eddie Griffin wasn't just caping for Bill Cosby. He was dragging the curtain back on a much bigger game. In Eddie's eyes, every time a Black man in entertainment reached a certain level of power or influence, boom, a scandal magically appears. And no, he didn't think it was a coincidence. He saw it as a warning shot. Get too big, step out of line, and we'll tear you down. He wasn't guessing. He was connecting dots. Michael Jordan? First gambling drama, then his father's murder, tied together in whispers that never really went away. You're not crazy, Clint. Eddie saw the pattern. Even the most legendary, seemingly untouchable Black men end up with their legacies bruised. Cosby went from America's dad to public enemy, despite decades of charitable work and clean-cut image. To Eddie, the message was loud and ugly. No matter how high a Black man climbs, Hollywood will find a way to dirty his name.
In the paper, if a Black man does something, it says, John Jones, blacklist, said black, black, black. Now, if a white man does it, it isn't white man Jones, it's just a man. But if a Black man does it, then any white bigot can point his finger and say, see that? There they go again. Well, that isn't right.
See, Eddie Griffin wasn't just talking, he was exposing. He knew exactly how the media game plays out. When a white man stumbles, it's an isolated incident. But when a Black man trips, suddenly it's a reflection of an entire community. That double standard isn't just racist, it's strategic. It lets the media weaponize individual mistakes to reinforce negative stereotypes about Black people, while white men walk away untouched, reputations intact. So when Malcolm-Jamal Warner died, Eddie didn't just post a sad emoji and keep it cute. He questioned it, loudly. While Hollywood handed out copy-paste condolences, Eddie's response had that suspicious tone, the same one buzzing across the Black community. The timing was too perfect, too neat. Malcolm had just started publicly calling out Hollywood's racial politics. He'd announced plans to drop an autobiography full of insider truths. And then, poof. Gone in Costa Rica, just 48 hours after an Instagram post where he called out media, captors, and warned Black people they were being hustled. Come on now. That's not coincidence. That's a pattern. And if you've been paying attention, you've seen it before. Chadwick Boseman spent his final years not just acting, but activating, giving powerful interviews about Black storytelling and fighting Hollywood's whitewash machine. Then he died. Nipsey Hussle was building economic independence, planning meetings with LAPD to stop gang violence, and preaching ownership. Then he was gunned down in his own parking lot. Dave Chappelle turned down $50 million to protect his voice, went into exile, and when he came back, The media attacked like clockwork every time he got too real. But Malcolm's case? It's chilling because we can trace the escalation. Early 2024, he's doing light interviews. Mid-2024, he's getting bolder, talking about how Hollywood uses and discards Black talent. By the end of the year, he's teaching people how to spot cultural theft on his podcast. And then that final post, calling out the system, warning the people, and 48 hours later, he's dead. In Costa Rica, what made Malcolm-Jamal Warner truly dangerous wasn't just his message. It was the fact that people were actually listening. He had spent over 40 years earning trust, respect, and credibility. From his days as Theo Huxtable, he'd been subtly challenging norms, even when no one noticed. And here's the part critics always missed. When folks said The Cosby Show wasn't Black enough, they didn't get the point. The power of the Huxtables was in how normal they were. Fluent in multiple languages, surrounded by art, grounded in love and education, all while being proudly, unapologetically Black. That quiet brilliance broke stereotypes on both sides, racist lies, and the pressure some Black folks felt to perform Blackness, to be seen as real. And Malcolm? He'd been thinking like that since childhood. His father, Robert Warner, named him after Malcolm X and jazz legend Malcolm-Jamal. At 6 years old, Malcolm was already reading about Langston Hughes, Richard Wright, and Mary McLeod Bethune, names his white classmates had never even heard of. By 6th grade, his favorite book was Poems on the Life and Death of Malcolm X. That early education? It shaped a mind that refused to be fooled by surface-level stories. He knew how narratives were crafted. He knew how Black voices were manipulated or erased. And now, as more people connect the dots, it's clear. This wasn't just a death. It was a silencing.
My dad was really instrumental in giving me a sense of identity and a sense of peace.
Look, my dad named me after Malcolm X and Malcolm. She would still be the person that I would want to raise
a child with. Co-parent with.
Mm-hmm. And my parents got divorced. My parents were separated since I was 3. They got divorced.
About 6th grade, I had a book called the poems on the life and death of Malcolm X. And it was my favorite book.
Malcolm-Jamal Warner didn't just stumble into awareness. He was built for it. His father, Robert Warner, made sure of that. While schools were busy whitewashing history, Robert was teaching young Malcolm about Langston Hughes, Richard Wright, and Mary McLeod Bethune by the time the boy was 10. And while his white classmates were memorizing presidents, Malcolm was learning how narratives were twisted to erase Black brilliance. That early truth-telling gave him a mission, to use his platform not just to entertain, but to educate. And let's give flowers to Pamela Warner, his mother and real-life compass. While other child stars were crashing and burning in the fame machine, she kept Malcolm grounded. No drugs, no meltdowns, no courtroom sagas. She taught him to think long-term, stay independent, and never sell out. So when Hollywood came knocking with scripts soaked in stereotypes, Malcolm didn't flinch. He said no. That backbone? Straight from his mama. As he grew, Malcolm didn't just act, he evolved. He won a Grammy alongside Robert Glasper for Jesus Children of America, a searing spoken-word piece about the Sandy Hook tragedy. His own album, Hiding in Plain View, peeled back the layers of racism and internalized oppression in Black communities. And then came the dagger line from Black Fist Beautiful. We used to fight for our right for freedom, but now we fight for the right to be dumb for free. Baby, that wasn't just a bar. That was a mirror. But don't think it was all applause and awards. Malcolm knew heartbreak, too. His longtime girlfriend, Michelle Thomas, yes, Justine from The Cosby Show, died of cancer at just 30.
And when she passed,
Malcolm was right there in the hospital bed, holding her as she took her last breath. Later came a public split with Regina King that pushed him even further into privacy. He stayed single for years, choosing peace over paparazzi, and only married at 45, on his own terms. To Malcolm, art was a tool, a weapon, a classroom. He knew exactly how easily Black messages could be twisted. Just look what happened to Bill Cosby. So he made sure his words couldn't be spun. He even joked about having respectability politics police on standby, just in case. That level of awareness? Razor sharp. He wasn't yelling at the world. He was inviting people to think bigger, deeper, smarter. And then came the most disturbing part of it all, the response to his death. The official story said drowning, but within hours, the narrative was locked, sealed, and sanitized. No deep dives, no hard questions. Gone, just like that. This, from a man who just said, "I've got stories that need to be told," and was working on a no-holds-barred autobiography. But after he died, silence. His Not All Hood podcast episodes, once easy to find, suddenly got buried. Some of the realest, rawest episodes moved to platforms no one talks about. And that final Instagram post, the one calling people captors and exposing manipulation, reframed as a mental health crisis. Not political commentary, not truth, just another troubled celeb. But make no mistake, Malcolm-Jamal Warner wasn't confused, and he wasn't unstable. He was clear, calculated, and ready to tell the truth. And maybe that's exactly what made him so dangerous.
Is combating the narrative of Black life, Black culture that the media focuses on.
Now here's the part that should have everyone raising an eyebrow. Malcolm-Jamal Warner publicly announced he was working on an autobiography, insider stories, full of behind-the-scenes Hollywood truths. And yet, when he died, not a single major outlet followed up. No questions about the manuscript. No press digging into the book. Nothing. Crickets. That's not just strange, it's unprecedented. When celebrities pass, especially ones as beloved and respected as Malcolm, the media usually swarms their unfinished projects like vultures. But this time, complete silence about the one thing that could have exposed how the machine really works. Meanwhile, Eddie Griffin wasn't handing out sanitized soundbites like the rest of the A-list crew. Oh no. While others posted generic condolences or stayed suspiciously quiet, Eddie's response had a different energy. He's been in the trenches. He knows the game. And he was already suspicious. They got money offering. First to kill this is $100 million to your favorite. That's not a joke. That's a warning. Because in his final months, Malcolm was doing something that makes powerful people squirm. He was teaching communities how to recognize exploitation, how to decode manipulation, how to spot cultural theft in real time. And when someone with 4 decades of industry experience starts saying the quiet parts out loud, the power shifts. Malcolm wasn't just talking, he was arming people with knowledge, preparing them for the fights he saw coming. Whether you believe there's more to his death or not, one thing is undeniable. Malcolm's warnings deserved more attention while he was alive. His messages about how creativity gets stolen, how narratives get controlled, how truth-tellers get silenced. They weren't conspiracy theories. They were survival strategies. And maybe, just maybe, we should start listening before the next voice gets cut off mid-sentence. And now that Malcolm-Jamal Warner is suddenly gone, Eddie Griffin is sounding the alarm, and this time, it's hitting different. Fans are pointing to one chilling moment, Malcolm's final public appearance, dressed head to toe in black, talking about the pain of being heard but not seen. Sound familiar? That same theme haunts nearly every interview Eddie's ever done. Black men in Hollywood, visible but never valued, talented but never trusted. Some folks are calling it coincidence. Others, they're calling it what it looks like, a warning. Especially when you look at Malcolm's shift in tone. Back in the Cosby days, he rarely touched race or politics. But in recent years, he was calling out the hypocrisy, the silent suffering, the reality that Black actors can give the industry decades, only to be discarded once they stop trending. And here's where it gets real suspicious. Malcolm wasn't sick. He wasn't spiraling. He wasn't reckless. He was on vacation, smiling in photos with his family hours before his death. Then suddenly, he's dead in the water and the media shrugs it off. Eddie Griffin wants answers. Why did the autopsy report take days? Why so little footage? Why is the only coverage calling him a former Cosby kid instead of the trailblazing artist he became? But the part that hurts, the part Eddie made brutally clear, is the pattern. This isn't new. Black legends die and get erased. Over and over. Eddie's been screaming it. In America, especially in Hollywood, Black men who speak truth don't die peacefully. They get turned into punchlines, headlines, or completely erased. And Malcolm? He knew that. He saw the system. And he used his platform to fight it, to mentor the next generation, to push back against tokenism, to reclaim his narrative from the machine that tried to write it for him. Looking back, it's clear, Eddie and Malcolm weren't just friends. They were soldiers in the same war. A war against Hollywood's quiet racism, the silent erasure of legacy, and the heartbreaking truth that in this country, Black brilliance is only celebrated when it's safe. Eddie Griffin isn't just mourning Malcolm. He's exposing the machine that failed him. Anyway, that's it for the video, folks. But if you heard anything real in today's story, don't just scroll. Share it. Talk about it. Because silence, that's how they win.